Good afternoon, everyone. This is the DCA Board President Rich Atwater. Welcome to our regular June hybrid meeting. Before we call the roll, I'd like to note one change to the agenda. We'll be taking item 7D, revisions to our investment policy, before 7A, but the balance of the agenda remains unchanged. And with that, I'd like to ask, we'll call the meeting to order, and Claudia, if you'd call a roll of the board.
Gladly, President Atwater. Director Milobar.
Yes.
Director Estremera.
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Here.
Excellent, thank you. Director Martin.
Here.
Thank you. Director Chang.
Here.
And Director Adabdawi.
Present.
Excellent. I also want to, for the record, acknowledge alternate Director Weed, who is also on joining us virtually.
Thank you.
Oh, and alternate Director Tincher as well. And I believe alternate Director Flory and Keegan and alternate Director Royce. I think. Yeah. So, welcome.
All right. Well, you want to move on to the Pledge of Allegiance? Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic with one nation it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we'll move on to agenda item 4, public comment. And we'll also ask for public comments on items on the agenda. We'll be allowing public comment in person or remotely. This is a hybrid meeting. And in-person participants wishing to provide public comment should fill out and submit a speaker card. If you wish to make public comment remotely, we request that you submit a request through the link to the online request form noted on the agenda. Please make sure you submit the request by 2:15 p.m. In addition, remote attendees may provide public comment during the meeting by using the raise hand function on the Ring Central platform. Those participating by phone can press *9 to raise their hand. And Ms. Rodriguez, have we received any public comments for item 4?
President Atwater, at this time, we have not received any public comment requests.
Okay. Then we'll move on to agenda item 5, and that's the approval of the minutes of May 19th, 2022.
I move we approve.
Martin, second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comments on the minutes?
We do not.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
President Atwater, I believe Director Chang has a comment.
I just had a slight request for a change on page 4 of the minutes under the last full paragraph before where it starts with DWR environmental manager. If we could change that to manager, just a slight misspelling.
Okay.
Vice President Palmer hasn't got that, but anyway.
Not me.
Thank you. We'll incorporate that typo correction in the minutes. So we have a motion and a second with that minor editorial comment.
Oh, I should have caught that.
Claudia, you want to call the roll on that action?
President Atwater, Josh has a comment.
Sure.
Apologies, President Atwater. I just wanted to note for the record and request that Vice President Palmer and Director Martin are comfortable with the amended motion as the maker and the second.
Oh, of course.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
As noted.
Excellent.
All right.
I will call the roll. President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estamera,
Aye.
Vice President Palmer,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi
Yes.
have been approved with that change.
Great. We'll move on to agenda item 7, discussion items. And as I indicated at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to move up 7D. And this is to,
President Atwater, we do have a consent item, item 6.
the consent calendar. Oh, that's right. We got to do the COVID resolution. 6A, approve resolution authorizing virtual board and committee meetings pursuant to
I move we
AB
approve.
361.
I move we approve.
If you could mute, that would be helpful. Whoever's making those.
Motion to
Some
approve.
child. I move we approve.
I got a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Yeah, I did the motion. I'll second it.
Great. Thank you.
Tony and Sarah, President Atwater,
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estamera,
Aye.
Vice President Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution passes.
Great. Now we'll move on to agenda item 7, discussion items. And like we indicated before, we're moving 7D as the first item under discussion items.
President Atwater, Tana will not be joining us today, but we do have Sam. Let's see.
Yes, Sam Small. He's here and he's on the line. Sam's going to give the presentation.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Great. Good afternoon, President Atwater and members of the DCA board. My name is Sam Smalls, as indicated, and I am presenting item 7D on behalf of Katano Kasaine, who is treasurer of the board, and wanted to extend first her sincerity in not being able to make the meeting today, but definitely we wanted to make sure that this item was covered properly. My title is Manager of Treasury and Debt Management for the Metropolitan Water District. And in our relationship with the DCA, we manage certain activities related to finance for the district. And my role at MWD is managing the investment portfolio as well as putting together the policies for our board to approve, which we just did for the upcoming fiscal year. In a similar fashion, we are putting together the policies for this board's consideration to approve for fiscal year 22-23. Next slide, please. Pursuant to California Government Code sections 53-600, it expressly grants the authority to the board of directors to invest public funds, and that authority may be delegated to the treasurer for a one-year period. Next slide, please. Routinely, we would evaluate whether there are changes in state law that would impact state policy, but no such changes actually were in place this year. So we are not making any recommended changes to the policy that currently exists for fiscal year 21-22. So again, no changes to the existing policy. So an adoption of the terms and conditions of the existing policy for the upcoming fiscal year is what's being recommended by staff. Next slide, please. So our recommendation is to approve the statement of investment policy for fiscal year 22-23, which is provided to the board, and delegate authority to the treasurer, which is Kitano Kasane, to invest DCA's funds for fiscal year 22-23. Next slide, please. That concludes my official presentation, and happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Well, thank you, Sam. Any questions from the board? We're looking for a motion to approve.
Looks like I thought I saw Adnan wave his hand.
Yes, if I may, I just wanted to say thank you for it's helpful to review the history here and our requirements to approve the treasurer to prepare this each year. So thank you for that. No questions though.
Okay.
You're quite welcome.
Does that mean, Anand, you're going to make a motion to approve it?
I'm happy to make a motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, you have a second.
President Atwater, sorry to be a little slow on the draw. If I'm not interrupting the flow, may I ask one quick question, please?
Of course.
Yep. So, sorry about that. This is, the oddity of being in the room where you can't see me. But the question I had, perhaps, for Mr. Smalls is, given the change, I think in the financial landscape in the next year with the rising interest rates and so on, do we see it making any kind of adjustments? I know, these changes have just occurred recently, but I, not being as familiar with this, I just kind of wonder if that would color our thinking going in the future in terms of investments, investment policy going in the future.
Sure. That's a great question. And I would say that this is about policy, not necessarily about strategy. So short answer is your policies don't need to change in light of the volatility that currently exists in the marketplace. However, our strategy is dynamic, and we are always looking for opportunities to ensure that we meet the policy objectives of safety, liquidity, and yield for performance.
And maybe a follow-up to that. So this policy reflects the same policy as Metropolitan's investment policies?
It is the same terms and conditions, yes, that we have in place for Metropolitan. Except there might be one difference in terms of the percentage in some certain categories, and I don't have that at my fingertips, but I certainly can research that and get that back to you. But I think that's the only difference that there might be, like in a certain sector we might have a different percentage, but not a material difference in terms of substance.
Thank you.
Sure.
I just had that led me to think of something right there, and thank you for bringing it up, Robert. It would be kind of cool to see at some point like a pie chart of where the different things are, so we can see and compare it to maybe other boards, other investment strategies.
We can put that on the agenda next month if you'd like.
I'd like to see that. Yeah. I mean, my own personal investment is buy, lowball everything, and pick up some good deals. But hey, whatever.
All right. We do have a motion and a second? We have these questions. If we don't have any other, again, we can have that background and Samuel, you can ask Kitano if we just have a little PowerPoint slide that compares the investment policies, that'd be fine. So let's go ahead.
I will do that. And just to be clear, is it just comparing Metropolitan to DCA? Or are there other entities that you'd like to compare?
What do you guys think? I mean, Metropolitan would be a good one. If there's anything that seems to be comparable in terms of investment for I don't know if we have an entity similar to ourselves, but it would be nice to see, how we're doing.
Yeah, you're pretty unique, but I think Metropolitan really is the best peer to use. So I would suggest doing that. And I apologize in advance if there's noise in the background. Understood.
All right, we'll go ahead and follow up with that. And thank you, Sam, for doing that. We can call the vote for 7D.
Bradley, President Atwater. President Atwater.
Yes.
Director Millibar.
Yes.
Director Stamera.
Aye.
Vice President Palmer.
Yes.
Director Martin.
Yes.
Director Chang.
Aye.
And Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Resolution is adopted.
Great. We'll move on back to 7A, the June DCA monthly report, and I assume Graham will give that presentation.
Yes, I will, President Atwater. Thank you. So Claudia, if you would please move to the first page of section 1. So a couple items I wanted to highlight in the monthly report. First of all, we're here in our hybrid boardroom format, and I'd say it's going very well, if not a few glitches here and there that will work out certainly, but overall I'm very impressed with how the system is up and running and grateful for staff getting the system commissioned and ready to roll this month. So this is a real success. Moving on to some of the technical work, I just wanted to take a minute and highlight the status of field work. So we have had a spring 22 investigation program underway that began last month in May. We completed all the cone penetration testing work last month. Geotechnical borings are extending into the current month, but we expect to be done next week. So that has all gone very well with no major issues to report. We're also working on planning for another round of investigations later this summer, next fall. So I think we're looking forward to a pretty robust investigation program this summer and fall. So any questions on current workload before we move forward in the monthly report? Okay, so Claudia, if you could jump to stakeholder, please. So I just wanted to highlight a few items on the stakeholder engagement tab. We did have a couple of presentations just last month in May to Walnut Grove Rotary, which was a very good discussion, as well as the North Stockton Rotary. I think those were really productive conversations about the project, and I very much appreciate those organizations for welcoming us to their meetings. Also, we've had quite a bit of social media activities you can see down summarized on the lower left-hand corner. We've been pushing out quite a bit of content. We'll be continuing to do that. Claudia, next, could we move to section 3 budget? So here we sit approaching the end of the fiscal year. We had the original budget of 21.5 million. We rolled over just under 3 million from last fiscal year's underrun, pushing our total funding limit up to just under 24.5 million. As we sit right now, we've been tightening up our forecast and projections to complete the current fiscal year. Our expectations are to have something close to an actual expenditure at the end of the year of about 19.1 million. So that's going to leave a cumulative underrun for the past 2 years of about 5.3 million. Claudia, next, let's go to the schedule, please. So again, this is our fiscal year schedule. It's put into broader context using the graphic at the bottom. Still, we're positioned just in front of the release of the public draft EIR, which is expected later this summer. But as we wind down our current fiscal year activities, everything is generally on track. We've been keeping up with all of our engineering tasks. Everything has very much been progressing as planned. Field work intended for the current fiscal year is in the process of winding down. So in general, everything is on track. No issues to report with respect to the schedule. So that completes my summary of the monthly report, unless there's any questions.
Do we have any questions?
No, I'm just glad to see the geotech work going ahead.
Great. Well, thank you, Graham. Good job. And let's move on to 7B, the proposed 22-23 budget.
Thank you, President Atwater. So I wanted to start first with the board memo, and then we'll work our way through a more detailed presentation. But just to summarize the planned technical work for the upcoming fiscal year, we'll be continuing to focus our priorities on providing DWR support in preparation of permit documents, applications, and support through that process, include responding to any comments that may come through the public review period. We've also been talking a bit about the geotech already. We're going to be continuing execution of our geotechnical program with the intent on collecting better understanding of subsurface conditions across the Delta. These data are critical for validating assumptions and continuing to support DWR's evaluation of alignments. Then lastly, we have a host of activities associated with better understanding potential engineering concepts, also looking at potential future procurement scenarios, contracting strategies, overall programmatic schedule. All of that is kind of bundled into the third bullet there. So those are the three main thrusts of the technical work that we're looking forward to in the coming fiscal year. At this time, we do have an unallocated reserve of $750,000 that's included in the budget. The overall proposed budget is $31.16 million. And in the presentation that follows, we're going to step through that in detail. Okay, so next slide, please. So we'll be first looking at an overview of the DCA's work breakdown structure. Then we'll go through by functional areas and review the proposed budget. Then also another depiction by major vendors. And then lastly, a budget roll up for the fiscal year. Next slide, please. So first, just to touch on our work breakdown structure. The work breakdown, it's organized to capture all of the work that would be performed throughout the duration of the project. Right now, the current phases are Program Management Office, or PMO, as we refer to it, and that's all the items sort of in the blue purple shaded color there on the right-hand side all fall within the Program Management Office. And then Program Initiation is the green categories down in the lower right-hand corner. And that's where the engineering work that's being performed to support the environmental process resides. Future phases of work would be program execution. So that's the actual delivery of capital projects. And then program closeout at the end of construction and commissioning. This would be closing out all the financial information, record documents, and so on. And so now what we're going to do is go through each of the functional areas. And just for reference, before we leave this slide, I tried to say it quick. The functional areas are the main items that you could see there within the PMO and the program initiation. So there's 10 total budget categories within the PMO, and we're going to step through each of these. Go ahead, Claudia. So first, the executive office. So this is all the activities of the executive director and chief engineer, as well as all the support for the DCA board meetings. So this includes all of our financial, legal, HR, oversight, everything related to oversight of the DCA organization. And then, as I mentioned, this also includes our unallocated reserve, our allowance. You can see that down on the lower bottom entry of the table. Next. So community engagement, we have all the activities associated with DCA's outreach to interested stakeholders. So this includes supporting DWR's outreach efforts, as well as managing all of our social media outlets and website content. Slide, please. Program controls group. So this group provides all of our program support activities across the entire organization. So this includes all of our cost, schedule, and risk management, document controls. Also, this group is responsible for maintenance of all those policies and procedures, all that's necessary to do our business as an organization. Next slide. Sorry if I'm going too fast, just please let me know and I can slow down. So in terms of our administrative group, part of the PMO, This group is responsible for managing all of our physical facilities here at the office, our IT requirements, personal computer support, hardware, software implementations. All of that falls under the administrative task. Right. So our procurement group, this is the group responsible for all of the procurement, goods and services, issuing of any RFPs, RFQs, bids, negotiations, also insurance, contract amendments, and closeout all fall under procurement. We do have a couple of procurements planned for the next fiscal year associated with on-call audio-visual services, as well as a couple other similar services that are close to exceeding their authorized thresholds. But we don't at this point have any major procurements planned during the next fiscal year. Slide, please. Property and permitting management. So this is the property group. They're responsible for all property related permissions, acquisitions, temporary entry permits. At this point, this is all associated with field work. And then the permitting management group is responsible. They provide support, really the bridge between the engineering teams and the permitting teams over at DCO is serviced through the permitting management group. Please. Additional PMO functions would include the health and safety, quality management, sustainability groups. So they're all responsible for preparing their respective program management plans associated with these different items, and then ensuring implementation across all of DCA activities. So now we're going to shift over to program initiation. So this is where all of our engineering, fieldwork, functional areas that are supporting DWR's environmental planning efforts. Next slide, please. So first, looking at engineering, the engineering group is responsible for all the technical studies, alternative analyses, and support to develop the concept level design reports. The design reports are being developed for all the alternatives identified by DWR as part of the environmental planning process. You can see just as a note as well, once the environmental planning work's complete, the engineering activities will transition over to that program execution phase that I mentioned with a new WBS associated with that. Next slide, please. So the fieldwork group is responsible for management and execution of all the field investigatory activities, including the geotechnical program, any field surveys, other exploratory work, geophysical work to support the concept level engineering. Next slide. So then looking at the same information with a different view, we've summarized our budget by major vendors. So that's any vendor with a contract equal to or exceeding 250,000. And this does equal about 95% of our overall total budget. Right. So here we have our budget summary for work activities next fiscal year. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I already described what our key focus areas are for the coming fiscal year. We have a total proposed budget of $31.16 million. You can see on the right-hand table how those roll up between the program management office with a total budget of about $10.6 million, and then program initiation of about $20.5 million. The two combined together for the total budget of $31.163. That completes the presentation of the proposed budget for next fiscal year, and I will pause here for any questions.
Great. Director Palmer, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just had a question. In terms of this, I mean, outside of the contractors, which we have, which, they hire whoever they need to have working for them, how many people are actually employed by DCA?
So there are no people employed directly by DCA. Everybody contracts in to the DCA, including myself. I think at a point when we get past the planning and permitting phase, and if and when there is a project that moves forward, that would be the right time to transition employment, I think, directly to DCA, but that's something we're still working on now.
Okay, so how many people come under our budget in terms of contractual employment?
So I'm going to just speak to those who are either full-time or largely dedicated to the program. We have a committed staff probably of around 40.
Okay.
And at times it's going to scale up from there. We have several folks in the field supporting those activities. And so the total size of the DCA operation will shrink and swell through the year based on activities that are going on. But that's probably that's an approximation for sure, and maybe an average or just kind of a round number.
Sure. Well, gives me a ballpark idea at any rate.
Great. Any other questions from the board? Director Martin.
Thank you, Chair Atwater. Thank you, Graham, for the presentation. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but I just want to double check. Given the increase over the last fiscal year, are you confident that we've got enough staffing in place to complete the deliverables that have been identified?
I am confident. Yeah, we have a delivery plan in place. We've been working on it for some time as part of this budget development process. And we are ramping up the resources necessary to complete. So yes, I do.
Thank you, Graham.
Any other questions from the board?
President Atwater, if I may.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate the run through on the presentation, and it looks like the 20 million out of the 31 million are committed to either engineering and field work, which seems to be the appropriate level of effort, because that is where our emphasis should be. I guess the only question I really had was, we're really looking forward to the release of the EIR, maybe another month or two here. I think the only sort of outreach effort that I saw in the budget is for community engagement. So if I could be reminded, so the outreach effort, surrounding the release of the EIR, is that coming under DWR's budget or under, the state water contractors? Because I didn't really see that in here. And I don't know if that's an appropriate question, but I thought I would ask that.
So I can answer first, and then I'll see if Marcus Hugh, who's here in place of Carrie, wants to add anything. But we do have some stakeholder engagement activities associated with DCA. The budget necessary for DCA to support outreach efforts to DWR is included, but those being driven by the CEQA process are being managed by DWR, and those would be within their budget. But the effort for us to support them in those outreach meetings is in our budget. Marcus, is there anything you want to add?
I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, thank you. I just think it's a really important, document release, and I just want to make sure that we had thought about that, which sounds like from the executive director's view it has been. So appreciate the answer.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll just add, Director Chang, that I think you've heard report outs from the communication lead, Janet Barbieri, and she is. DWR has a very robust outreach and communications plan, and she will continue to update the board as we work our way through it and head towards that public draft release.
Yeah. I see a hand raised, Director Ananabi.
Thank you, President Atwater. Yeah, just a quick question, Graham. I may have asked this question before, but for the sake of the public tuning in right now, the $5 million of underrun anticipated under the current commitments for the current fiscal year, is that represented here in the upcoming budget under program initiation with the uptick?
It is. So part of what we need to complete the scope of work that we've identified for next fiscal year is being funded by underrun. So we're intending to fund about $3 million of that $31.16 million is underrun accumulated over the last 2 years. That is correct.
Thank you.
One quick question, Graham. Have we had any public comments on the draft budget over the last couple of months? I know we've done workshops. Any feedback from the public?
We have not received any comments that I'm aware of. Claudia? Okay. No.
Very good. Well, then let's move on to 7C, Speaker Leadership Highlight, Rob McCarthy. Oh, we need to adopt this first too, don't we?
So President Atwater, we do have a staff recommendation to adopt
Approve it.
Yes.
Please.
I know, I was getting ahead of myself. I assumed everybody had already said, yeah, apologize. I need a motion.
I move it.
Thank you, sir.
Martin, second.
Thank you, Gary. We have a motion second, Claudia.
Oh, I'm sorry. We got
President Atwater.
Yes.
Director Millibar,
Yes.
Director Estamera,
Aye.
Vice President Palmer,
Yes.
Director Martin,
Yes.
Director Chang,
Aye.
and Director Anaptawi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Budget is adopted.
Good. Good. Very smooth. Let's move on now to 7C. And again, the senior leadership spotlight is Rob McCarthy, Program Support Manager. Graham, you going to introduce him? Or?
Yes, I'm here in the room.
Great.
Thank you, Director Atwater, for your enthusiasm to introduce me and skipping over the budget approval process.
Well, that's
complimenting that.
Very presumptuous on my part.
Thank you for the opportunity for me to meet you and introduce myself to you. I'll try to make this as entertaining and interesting as possible. I'm the PMO's new program support manager. I've been supporting the program since 2018, but I've just moved into this role for program support. We'll get into a little bit my history. I'm going to talk a bit about my military background and how it's helped me prepare for where I am today. So let's go ahead. All right, so I went to West Point, earned my mechanical engineering degree in engineering management there back in 1994. My wife over there on the right, Linda, she insists I put that picture up there along with the one from my days as a captain in the Army Corps of Engineers. There I served in the combat engineering unit, mostly in Germany, Bosnia, and in the Ukraine. I brought that up just because, of course, current events, back in 98, 99, we did partnership and training exercises with the Ukrainian Army, even back then, just to kind of illustrate the history we have with Ukraine. After the Army, I pretty much joined Parsons straight away, moved to Los Angeles, where I did meet my wife, Linda, who's been with me all along as we've moved around the world, working on large programs with Parsons, helping in various industries. Probably about 2003 or 4, I started working in the water in the water industry, and as I came back to the States, worked with organizations like SFPUC, Orange County, Freeport, spent a good deal of time with New York City's DEP and Southern Nevada Water Authority. Next slide. All right, so some of what I learned in the military, collaboration. The picture you see there on the right, at first glance, when I first looked this up, it looked kind of like maybe a little bit of a confused tunnel alignment on that map, but it's not. Those were actually minefields that were laid during the Bosnian War, and those are the lines of minefields between Serbia and Bosnia that each opposing side placed. I had the privilege, I guess, and pleasure of helping to facilitate the removal of those minefields along the border there. So there we see a combination of both people from both sides of the border, if you will. Where we removed over 1,000 landmines and thousands of pounds of munitions. Up on the right there, one of my mentors, some of you may know in program management. I really get a lot of pleasure from collaborating with groups on big, complicated projects. This was in New York City, and we helped them with their water program over a series of years that I'll get into a little later. All right, next slide. Team building is another big thing, of course, in the military. Off on the left there is actually with Parsons. Went over to Iraq, and this is when I first really entered the water business, if you will. We were helping to restore and build rural water supplies in southern Iraq. I will say one team building technique is to hold people by gunpoint, but I don't recommend it. We were the guns in that picture are for their protection and ours, but you know I think the assembling a team and having a team cohesion in difficult situations, difficult environments, and pulling together is really what it's all about. And you know, of course, that's carried forward on the right. Was a team we formed, program management team we formed in New York. All right, next slide. So just a few projects to highlight, starting to at the bottom there. New York City Department of Design and Construction, worked with them for about 4 or 5 years, helping them transform their capital program. We improved and digitized and streamlined their business processes across the entire program lifecycle. Large program, lots of projects, lots of people working on it, and you know, these kind of tough challenges are what I really enjoy. Carry that forward to another part of New York City. The Department of Engineering, excuse me, a specific program in Queens for stormwater management. And most recently, I've worked with the Las Vegas Valley Water District and Southern Nevada Water Authority, doing something similar, helping them streamline and improve their way of managing and running their projects and program. Again, a large project, a lot of people. This is what I enjoy, and this is I'm very happy and fortunate to be able to help this program. So I think that's all I have. Oh yeah, what am I doing here? So as the program support manager, I oversee the health and safety, risk, quality, program scheduling, contracting, and procurement services. All of these areas, you know, as we transition from program initiation to program execution and delivery, we really need to rethink and update our plans and the way we're going to execute in these areas. So that's what I'm focused on. And really, for me, it's to do that in a collaborative and a team building way, so that we, when it does come time to execute, we're ready and we could execute flawlessly. That's all I have, and thank you.
Wow.
Great.
President Atwater, if I could just to add on to Rob there, I'd like to just say that we really appreciate having Rob here. You can see his capabilities, although the program support role and the team underneath him may not always be sort of front and center with a lot of the activities that we're doing. They're really the backbone of the operation here. And it's really the work that we're doing with Rob's team is key to, I think, setting the future path for the DCA, ensuring that we're ready to scale up if and when there is an implementation phase, that we're ready to hit that in the best possible position. So just really think we're lucky to have Rob here, and I'm happy to have Rob introduce himself to you all.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Graham, and you put in context. Likewise, I think he is a great member of your team, and we appreciate the presentation. I see Director Sarah Palmer has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm impressed with your background, especially handling minefields. I think that's really going to help you negotiating California water politics.
I thought so too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments? But again, Rob, Anand, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just real brief. I mean, thank you for sharing a bit about your background. I mean, it's super impressive. I think that's been a theme we've seen with these spotlights. I guess just a question about your experience with the DCA so far. It kind of feels like a silly question given your background, working in really some challenging environments. But what would you say is one of your surprising challenges, I guess, since you started working on DCA issues?
I guess I don't know if it's surprising, but it happens in, I'd say, big situations. Is there's always a level of uncertainty that you need to deal with, and the certainty of the program has changed over time, and how we manage not only ourselves but our teams in our expectations, and continuing to plan and be positive and, not get bogged down by things you can't control. I think, that's the, one of the things that I try to I guess not only manage myself, but help inspire in others that if we keep pushing forward, we keep doing our jobs, the big things, the other things that are outside of our control will take care of themselves.
Well, great. Director Gary Martin, you have your hand up.
Thank you, President Atwater. Rob, first I want to thank you for your service to our country. And we're very fortunate to have a man of your stature and experience and background on this project. I do appreciate this whole program where we present members of our staff, and I couldn't be happier to have you on our team. And I want to thank you again for your service.
Director Martin.
I'm sorry, did somebody speak up?
I just said thank you.
Thank you. Great. Well, thanks again, Rob. We'll move on now to agenda item 8, staff reports. And 8A is Josh. Do you have anything you want to bring up, Josh?
Thanks, President Atwater. The written reports in the packet, I just wanted to note again, while we're currently meeting under AB 361, the COVID-related relaxation of the Brown Act rules, there are those 2 bills that are still pending in the legislature, which would make more permanent changes to the Brown Act to permit directors to participate from remote locations at a meeting without making those remote locations open to the public. And it's AB 1944 and 2449. Both of those bills have actually made it through the Assembly and are currently being considered at the Senate committee. So it does look like there's some momentum to move those forward. I think importantly, both bills were amended before moving to the Senate to require that if a single director is participating remotely, that a quorum of the board has to participate from a single physical location. This would be a change and could present some logistical issues for the DCA moving forward. So something we'll want to watch very closely. And as always, we'll keep you updated as those move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't hear the person's name, but we'll move on to the DWR Environmental Manager's report. Carrie Bucknam's not here, and I know we have somebody who's filling in for her, but I do not know her name.
President Atwater, I'll introduce Marcus Yee. Marcus Yee is here. He's DWR Program Manager leading CEQA NEPA efforts supporting Carrie Buckman.
Great. Thank you, Marcus.
Good afternoon, President Atwater, members of the board. I have a brief environmental update for you, and that is that we are continuing to work really hard to meet our goal for a public release of the environmental impact report for this summer. Also wanted to highlight something in the report, and that is, as Graham mentioned earlier, we're continuing with our soils explorations, and so we've included a link to a map that is being updated regularly, so folks want to know where those explorations are occurring. And that's it.
All right, appreciate it. We're all looking forward to your release of the draft in the next 60, 90 days. Any questions from members of the board? I don't see any. We could move on to 8C. Any verbal reports from members of the board? I don't think so. Don't see any hands raised. Then we're ready to adjourn. Oh, except for what I asked, agenda item 9, always on there. Future agenda items. Does anybody have a request for a future agenda item in July? Actually, we don't meet in July. If you look right below that, August 28th, we have a special board meeting. All right, we're ready to adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.